Hey, I'm Matty, and this is Moses. We're the founders of Pixlmob, and this is the Prop Media Podcast, where we talk about everything in the cross-section of property and media.
Today, it's us. We're talking through a lot of things we've learned in scaling a real estate media business and some of the crossover of scaling Pixlmob, particularly focused on what the heck do you do in the slow season? Most markets have a slow season where you shoot a lot less just naturally, a lot of times in the winter. So what do you do with that space to keep growing your business and keep building the life that you want to design? Before we did Pixlmob, we started something else.
I'm trying to remember before Pixlmob.
Yeah, that's about right. He doesn't spend a whole lot of time on this anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah, North 7th, our own real estate media company. This is where Pixlmob got its birth. I mean, we spent years working in real estate media, and I shot hundreds of houses with real estate media, trained probably close to 10 photographers in that period of time. And we built systems. We've tried to launch in different cities, but
that did not go very well.
It did not go very well. We expanded our footprint in upstate South Carolina, pretty across 3 counties, and then we stepped away when we started Pixlmob.
Yeah. So from late 2020 was when we started. I think we opened on November 7th, which was fun.
Yeah, November 7th.
November 7th. Kind of accidental, but it was sort of fun for our birthday. And we grew that, and that was our primary focus from late 2020 through early 2023, I would say. So those 2.5 years or so was
a weird time. That transition time was weird because there was still
because late
stuff going on both.
Late 2022, like in the middle of 2022, we started into some of the development for Pixlmob, and Pixlmob's first iteration launched in late 2022, back when it was still actually part of North 7th.
Yep,
it hadn't spun out yet. So there's that transition time at the end of that year and into the next year. And then by the middle of 2023, we were fully engaged with Pixlmob as our main jam. So today, how much time do you spend working on North 7th in the last 31 days, to be honest?
Yeah. I mean, you and I had a passing conversation about it this morning.
Yes.
And I think so. In all, that was it. That was all of my effort towards North 7th or thoughts about North 7th this month. So yeah, maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. And I interact with our manager over there. I used to interact with him and have like a direct coaching session with him like once a week. Then it kind of dropped to we do lunch every couple of weeks. Now, a lot of times we skip lunch, but at least once a month, maybe twice a month, I get together with our manager and we usually just have lunch. And I ask him if he's having any challenges, anything I can weigh in on, that sort of stuff. And I ask him for some key metrics.
So is North 7th still going?
Oh, yeah. If anyone's waiting in bated breath, North 7th does run. It functions. Simi Singh is its general manager. I was the one that
was wondering, so I feel relieved. Yeah,
we don't tell this guy anything about it anymore, but it functions. And I think it is not like authentically, it's not wildly profitable. It's not our focus anymore, but it functions. It employs people in the area. It pays us a little bit of money. And I think it's best, what's the word? Like it's accolade, so to speak. What I'm proud of about it is that it runs without us really interacting with it.
Yeah,
because of the systems and things that have been created in it, it functions, it grows, it adds users, it does that sort of thing in a self-contained way.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, we're kind of talking about this a little bit flippantly, jokingly, but like it is a benefit for us to still be involved at a high level with North 7th because it is a part of the way that we continue to explore new ideas and test things out, get feedback in the field when we have new products or ideas. And obviously that impacts editing solutions and things like that.
We have lots of metaphors about it, mostly about food, which kind of probably makes sense for us. That it's our test kitchen, and it's where we experiment with ideas of like, how does prop media work? Like, do luxury products work, and do more run of the mill like repetitive products work better? And that varies by market. So we really can only speak with any authority to the western half of South Carolina. In that space. But it does give us a space that we can experiment with and actually have like real live feedback of how Pixlmob functions and what it actually takes to run orders through Pixlmob in a live business. Oh, that's probably worth mentioning. North 7th will do around 1,000 shoots every year, a little up, a little down. That space is about the size of the company. So it's definitely not the largest real estate media company in the world. But it's not the smallest. It's big enough to have its own employees and to function independently of us as its owners.
Yeah. And I mean, it also gives us insight into some of the topic we're going to have to talk about today, which is seasonality. What are the ins and outs and the ups and downs of the real estate media business? Because that's very important as we're thinking about our customers and the things that they've got to deal with. And we are firsthand still experiencing, and even it's becoming more and more secondhand now, as more and more of that is in Simi's hands as our manager, but we still have a direct line to that.
Like, we have a direct line to it, but like the pain of seasonality, like when I shifted focus almost fully to Pixlmob, like the first year, the pain of seasonality was actually way worse in Pixlmob than it ever felt in North 7th. And I think that's just because of like the more global footprint of, I think our market actually kind of varies a little bit less in South Carolina. It's not super cold. It's not full year round like the more subtropical areas. So it kind of slows down in the winter enough for it to matter about how to budget and survive the winter. But nothing like Pixlmob the first year, where we saw like November and December absolutely crater revenue wise, as much of the, like, I think many markets really kind of experience 30, 40, 50% slowdowns, or would seem like it, at least from the numbers that we can see on a national and international scale.
I always assumed it was because of weather that there's this seasonal dip. But what do you think is the cause for seasonal changes? Because it's the same in Australia.
I used to think that too, until we started talking to people in Australia. They're like, they have the same thing. And their winter is our summer. So like, which also is totally bizarre. Love you, Australians, but celebrating Christmas when it's in the middle
of the summer for them.
Summer is just weird. Probably more authentic though. Like, that's probably like when Jesus was actually born, it probably wasn't actually like all
that's why they do it.
Anglican carols of snow in Palestine. Yeah. But anyway. Okay, so why does it slow down? There's tons of reasons why it slows down. And every market doesn't slow down, by the way. So like, it totally depends. Like, if you're in a super, like I had some coaching clients when I was coaching realtors around the country. And if they're in a super, like a resort style town, seasonality is crazy.
Oh yeah.
So like, if you're like in a beachfront town, it can be like you literally sell 80% of your property between April in October, and then you sell nothing across the winter effectively. And it's this mad seasonal cycle of run and sell to everyone who's there, and then take a vacation for 4 months.
Right.
So it can be that crazy. Or like Florida has a lot less seasonality. I think probably some mixture of like the actual demographics that are there that are older and are less impacted by school systems and things like that. When I was a realtor and a broker, the biggest things that I saw in our markets that impacted it were the school schedules. And
I think it's huge,
when I was talking to an Australian photographer who runs photography companies across like the eastern half of Australia, he was saying the same thing, because I was joking with him about like why would it slow down? Your winter is not our winter. It's like, it's how the rhythm of the year works. And so my clients as a realtor, a lot of times they would speed up across the summer, and they would be racing to get into a house before school started at the beginning of August.
Yeah.
And so May, June, July were hopping. And then August was always weird, because you still had a bunch of clients who hadn't found a house yet, but they all take the middle of August off to start school.
Yeah.
And then, so like the first week of August and the last week of August are booming, and then there's nothing. It's like this weird lull.
Yep.
And then now from a Pixelmob's perspective, we can actually see some of this stuff like week by week across the entire nation, which is crazy.
Yeah, dramatic ratios comparatively. I think when we were running North 7th, like winter made sense. All right, December, holidays, New Year, there's going to be a dip. But I wasn't expecting changes in August or early September.
When I was starting in real estate, I didn't expect those changes either because like it's still a summer month, so you feel like it's the same. I guess the weather like it lulls you into that, but because of that blip where school starts back, you might as well take a vacation between like August 10th and August 20th because nobody's going to do anything.
Yeah,
at least it probably changes if your school started at a different time somewhere else in the country.
It's also my birthday week, so I'm also recommend people to celebrate.
Oh, great! So we could also celebrate Matty's birthday.
Yeah.
During that time when we're all taking a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Birthday week. Yeah. So that does work out conveniently for me, I will say, at least. But yeah, I think the thing that has occurred to me as we've been operating Pixlmob is seeing this at scale across the US. It's like almost programmable.
It's remarkably consistent.
Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July. I mean, we're heavily influenced by US holidays, but you'll see those dips and very reliably. And then also as you roll into the winter, there is kind of a dramatic shift in December. How does that affect from the real estate side?
Yeah.
How does a listing, the timeline of a listing affect deal flow through the wintertime?
So there's other things that affect the real estate side of thing, which kind of lead into all these phenomenon. I think the most obvious ones come around Christmas time, where from Thanksgiving to New Year's is an interesting time in real estate because nobody wants to be showing their house during that time. So I think there's a natural resistance of people to want to list in that space because, they're going to focus on their family and all that. They don't want to be bothered by somebody else running through their house and having to clear out. And then there's other factors where like, even some of the stuff we designed for Pixlmob of like removing decorations and objects and stuff. Yeah. When you're in a season that's really obviously identifiable, like Thanksgiving or Christmas, then the date of your listing is immediately obvious.
Yeah, if it's covered with Halloween decorations,
right?
You got ghosts hanging in your trees.
So the realtors know that. So if they don't know to hire a photographer who knows how to edit that out or use Pixlmob to edit that out, then they're actually, the realtor is going to have some resistance to listing it with Halloween decorations or Thanksgiving decorations or Christmas decorations, because as that drags on and it's February or March.
Yeah. And there's still those ghosts in the trees. That's dated your listing for sure.
Immediately, like even if you don't think about it, you see it as a buyer and you're like, oh, this has been on for a while.
Yep.
Right. So also mental note to photographers, that's a great resale. If you've shot something with that, like go back to that realtor in January and February and offer to do a half price reshoot or edit that stuff out for them and explain to them why. Like it's a great way to engage with them, add value, do it for free, charge a little bit for it, whatever, but build that relationship with that customer and be engaged with their business and it will pay tons of dividends.
Absolutely.
So the engagement with seasonality and how it impacts our customers is really important for business growth. So if you're just kind of oblivious to it, then that's a great way to go out of business, to be honest, because if you have a seasonal dip of 30 to 40%, your expenses probably don't change a whole lot in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So if you're doing 30 to 40% higher in the summertime and 30 to 40% lower in the wintertime, which might be like a little bit of a little extreme for seasonality. A lot of the seasonality we see might be 10, 20% up in the summer, 10, 20% down in the winter. But that's still like a 20 to 40% swing.
Yep.
If you have fixed expenses and you haven't been thinking through that, that is business sinking / you're going to put a ton of expenses on a credit card in December and pay multiple thousands of dollars in interest. Tell me how I know this.
Yeah, right. Sounds familiar. I don't know how. Do you have any firsthand experience?
Yeah, I don't know. After 10 years in the real estate industry and our first year doing North 7th, and we still did this, right?
Yeah.
Like it's easy to let it kind of sneak up on you.
Yeah.
But it's also relatively easy to budget for if you are engaged with it and thinking about it. It's not that difficult to discern what your seasonality is. And if you go talk to some big brokers in your area, they can probably actually give you real statistics and probably be glad to. Just go ask them, say, hey, like it might be a great way to earn business too. Like go meet some people, but go and ask them for their expertise of like, what does it look like? Like what's the lowest month and what's the highest month? So like back when I was very active in our market, like the lowest month in December might've been a little less than 1,000 listings in our sub-market. And then the highest month might be 1,400 or 1,500 listings. And we would do like 15, back then we would do 15 to 17,000 listings a year. So that can also give you like market size data and ideas of like how many of these can we actually capture.
Yeah.
And if you want like bragging rights, like we would kind of use as a authority metric that I would share as I was doing sales for North 7th. It was like the percent of the market that we had captured as we were growing. You can't do that unless you actually size the market.
You have to know.
You know how many are supposed to be shot in that month.
Which is a noble number. That's
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Any realtor association and MLS system in the United States is going to know that number. And if that's not available, Redfin has some awesome data that I use to benchmark a lot of Pixlmob's numbers nationally. Because they publish like you have to like tag them and link to their site and say, hey, I got this information from Redfin, but that's it. Yeah. You can freely use that. They even have APIs that we've used to like suck in that data and use it to compare to see how Pixlmob is growing against seasonality, to know if our growth is from real user growth or if it's just a swell because it's July. So it's really useful to know what's going on in your business if you're engaged in the seasonality, because on a micro scale, I remember being really exuberant when we were like growing the first year of North 7th, and we were scaling like mad those first 6 months. But looking back on it, in reality, I'd say at least 30-40% of that was just the season. Like it was just, there were more listings. The clients that we captured were doing more deals. And so like getting engaged with the reality of it kind of keeps you from being overly exuberant about things that aren't actually because of you. And it also helps you pace your business toward what's going to happen in the wintertime.
So along those lines, how do you know if you're in a seasonal lull versus your business sucks? Like you're in the moment, right? And, oh man, I'm seeing a 10% drop in November. Is that just seasonal? Or I know I'm coming out of the winter and I'm not recovering as fast as I thought. But the thing is, like, how
or you're recovering faster.
Yeah, true. I think that's the best case. But how can do you have any ideas on how maybe someone could identify kind of the difference between seasonality and a business lull?
Yeah, one of my favorite business coaching guru guys is a guy from the 80s and 90s. His name's Peter Drucker. He's not as popular anymore, but he's just a brilliant dude. And one of his like little sayings was measure what matters. Like if you don't know what is, and in the coaching company I used to work for, it would just be know your numbers, which is a business adage, right? If you don't know what's going on with your business, you don't really have a business. Like you are shooting in the dark and hopefully you're making money, but next month you may not, unless you actually know what's happening.
Yeah.
So to know that in a seasonal market, you can't know that unless you know what the curve is in your market, which is where these conversations, so research with Redfin, conversations with realtors. Personally, as a sales guy, I would totally use this as an excuse to talk with and engage with realtors. Go make a list of the top 10 realtors in your area that you want to do business with, and go ask them for their expertise genuinely. Don't do any sales during the coffee. Just go with coffee and say, hey, I'm growing a real estate photography business. I'd love to pick your brain about how seasonality works because I know you're really active and you would know this stuff in our market, and start a relationship with them. Don't hard sell anything. Just build a relationship. They'll use you eventually.
Yeah. By the way,
and you'll get data that will let you know whether that drop is real or it's just a normal November.
There's like a phenomenon, I think, that Benjamin Franklin kind of identified of asking his enemies for books in this.
I haven't heard about this.
To ask for a favor. And there's this like endearment that's this association that's created when you're asking someone for a favor. And if they fulfill that favor, there's like a reciprocity in a weird way. Rather than you performing a favor for them, ask them to do a favor for you. And so there's maybe a little bit of a psychological manipulation you can be doing here.
Maybe you should go ask your most ardent competitor in real estate media what they think about seasonality.
Yeah, right. Yeah, ask them if you can borrow a lens.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, in our space, there's so much work to go around in most markets.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
I so wish, like in our market, like we tried to be really collaborative early on, but it just was not really well received, and just everyone was just in their own lane. They wanted to compete and do their thing, and we're over here like, there's like 5,000 realtors in our market. We don't need all of them. And I think there's a lot more collaboration and camaraderie that could happen even in your market, if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
But I think it's a good tactic, even with you're talking about, first of all, you'll get the expertise, the favor you'll be lent of, here's expertise about seasonality or hiring or what I think the industry needs for media. You have a conversation with a broker or realtors or a realtor team leader. And then you hopefully starting to build a relationship. And they're invested in you now, in your success at some level. So I don't think that should be your number one goal, but I do think it does. It's a good offshoot value.
It was one of my favorite things of working at Keller Williams is there was such a good collaborative attitude amongst like people who were technically your competitors.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of collaborative energy. A lot of it probably because of their like profit sharing structure and things like that, where everyone was really truly like bound together within a brokerage. But it was just fun. It's more fun to do business with other people, and you learn stuff from them. You learn stuff from other people. I think that's what's fun for us about going to Rep and PMRE and stuff like that too, to engage with other people and learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is funny to think about the dynamic specifically within a brokerage in that competition, because you're like literally under the same roof, like maybe literally in the same building.
Yeah, but we're friends. Like, right. And we literally
that is a benefit.
Help.
I'm thinking about like, okay, I mean, I've seen a lot of groups. Part of why PMRE and Rep works is because you can go talk to people and they're not in your market.
And they're from the other side of the country.
Yes. Yeah. You're operating in California and I'm operating in New York, and we don't have to, talk about my competitive advantage in my area. Yeah. And that's a risk. But I do think, I think you're right. I don't think it has to be a problem, but I do think people intuitively feel this need to be protective about that. But I think it's funny in some level, maybe just because you're so close within a brokerage, that you're kind of like, there is like profit sharing and other things where there's like a mutual, we're lifting this up.
It's not just that, because of interacting with other brokerages that don't have that. I think that strengthens it for Keller Williams, but there's that kind of camaraderie inside of tight brokerages and any brand from what I've seen.
We got into a weird competition rabbit trail.
Weird little rabbit trail about collaboration, but abundant mindsets pay off. Work with the people that are around you, learn from each other. A rising tide lifts all ships. I mean, it's a real thing.
Let's talk about systems and, some of the downtime.
Before we do that, if you're new to this business and you have no idea how to budget for seasonality, and you don't want a $20,000 credit card bill in your second year, or anything that other people have done before you, and you want to learn the easy way, try to figure out with the realtors the seasonality, and then pick the month that's the most normal. All right. So the month that's the most normal is going to be whatever you did in business last year divided by 12. That's your abstract normal month. And then from that, figure out how much each month is supposed to go up and down from your theoretical normal month. And that's going to be what you could expect to earn in revenue. But you're going to also need to do one of two things. You either need to put that cash away. So if you're above that watermark, that needs to go into a reserve account for the winter if you're going to effectively budget for the winter and you're going to normalize your expenses. Or the other method that you can do, which is where we started when I was starting my Keller Williams franchise, was you budget on your lowest month. And if you can pull that off and take your expenses from a December or January. framework, which is typically really low. If you can keep your expenses below that, then effectively you're building a plan for everything above that month to be profit if you can control your expenses. So if you want a real stretching exercise, see if you can get your expenses below your lowest month and your profit numbers will thank you. If not, and that may be impossible depending on what your expenses are or the size of your business. So if not, look for that normalized month and make your budget anticipating the seasonality so you don't get to a place where you're having to pull $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in expenses across November to January. So get out ahead of it, make a plan based on your real seasonality.
Trying to remember why we didn't do that.
I don't know. That's probably my fault. That was my responsibility.
No, we had some pretty good arguments over this, I think.
I think we were also obsessed with growing, so
Yes.
we thought we could outgrow the season. I think was the fundamental reason we didn't do that well the first year.
I think legitimately, this is, I think, a worthwhile conversation because we didn't do that intentionally. We didn't intentionally take on debt, but
we didn't intentionally fail, but we did.
Yeah, we intentionally made decisions that led to that conclusion. And getting to December and being like, oh, well, we have a gap.
Probably a little bit of hubris. We were growing really well. And I think literally, in my psychology at least, we'd grown so well the first half of the year. And I was working my network, adding realtors. I'd been a realtor for years. It was going really well. We exploded to several hundred transactions in the first 6 months. And whenever you're in that space, whenever the market's on a tear, you never really feel like it's going to stop.
Yeah.
But if we'd paused a little more, I think we would have made a few slightly different decisions.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get into a mindset of growth at any cost, and you can get yourself in trouble in this industry because this dip can be so dramatic, and the rebound's not always super fast. It depends on the market, right? There are some markets where seasonality is heavily neutralized, or it's just a minor dip because of some of the things we've already talked about.
Yeah, but I'd say November, December is pretty well across the board rough.
I think in most markets,
areas.
If you're in a suburban area, I think if you're in a city, it's a little bit more neutralized, but it's most of America. It's pretty heavily dips between November and end of the year. And then it starts rebounding in January. But yeah, it can take you by surprise in literally every year. It can,
and it starts rebounding in January for the opposite reason, because everyone's making New Year's resolutions and they're like, hey, I want to buy a house.
Yeah.
And so they're it's also the biggest day for annoying realtors to call you is January 1st and 2nd, because it's the most common date for listings to expire is December 31st. You learned that here. So ask your realtor if you're gonna if you're listing your house in the middle of the summer, don't let them set it to expire on December 31st, because all the realtors who don't normally call all of the withdrawn and expired listings, that's the one day that they're inspired to try. All right.
Good advice.
So anyway, just push it to before Christmas or the middle of January, and you might get a few less spam calls.
Yeah. All right. We're going to talk about some systems stuff here, and this kind of ties in with some of the financial and maybe even survival plans, but how can you build a company that scales? Build a system that allows you to flex.
How do you make magic things happening just because you say so?
Yeah. If you can answer that, we can wrap up this podcast.
You build a business. Businesses are magic.
In all seriousness, if you wanted to build a system that when things dip or if things are blowing up can work with you, what are some tips?
Of what to grow during the winter?
No, not necessarily. That's maybe another question, but I'll give you a hint. We built a business around this concept.
Oh, did we? Okay,
yeah.
That's a good hint.
Starts with a P.
So, well, any system that is going to be leverage, whether it's a software system, I forgot who we were talking to, but we were talking to somebody about how, I think it was Troy a few weeks ago, about how realtors, and I'd say all business people, struggle to actually implement the software they buy.
Yeah,
the most
right.
common reason they cancel software is because it was a great idea. They bought it, had a 12-month contract, and they never went back to it or used it.
Yeah.
It's just there's this little hump of implementation to get over where you have to learn a new system that we all have this natural resistance to, that we want it to just magically work, but it's never going to happen. So since we have the gift of seasonality in our industry, when things slow down, all currency is really time. So in the summer, you get more actual currency for your time. But in the winter, your currency is time. Like that's what you can invest in your business. If you're not doing as much shoots, every system that you can refine or tweak or learn how to outsource and put into a workflow that on your busiest, and there's a great litmus test for this, on your busiest summer day, when you had 9 shoots you pumped into a day from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., on that day, will your system work? And what you're poking at is, of course, like outsourcing editing that we built through Pixlmob was one of those things that we like, that it's a great time to work on stuff like that. If you've never tried outsourcing, it's not magic. You got to be able to communicate with the editor. You got to go find the editor. I think one of the most common reasons that somebody will make an account on Pixlmob and then not actually do a transaction is because it's going to take like 10, 15 minutes to go and look at a bunch of editors, try some filters, see and look through their portfolios, see who you want to use. Just because it's going to take 10 or 15 minutes. A lot of people never get that into their schedule.
Yeah.
And so it never happens. And it's a great idea that never happens. But because we've got this seasonal world, you've got time to actually work on implementation plans for your software, for how to outsource stuff every single winter. So it's a great cycle to like top grade your systems.
There's a really great book by Dan Martell called Buy Back Your Time.
That's a good one.
And the whole concept is really about the money that you are outlaying for your time. And essentially by outsourcing or delegating, you're buying your time back. That's really what the pitch he's making there.
Yeah.
In that time can then be reinvested into new things, or ultimately, whether that's your health or it's your family, or that's back into your business or new operations or new businesses or new lines of business, all those things. I think the reason I'm bringing up specifically outsourcing, I mean, it's people kind of inherit this because I think our industry has been built around, oh, right, well, when you get started, the common knowledge is just you find an editor online and you work with them.
Yeah, it's becoming kind of the ethos nowadays,
But
it wasn't
why-
even when we started.
I think when you're building your business, the why of that, this is the important part, is it has this benefit that it can scale
Yes.
up and down. The flex is important.
Yeah.
And I think it's relevant to the seasonality question is, it used to be when we started, it wasn't as obvious to us that we should outsource per photo to some company to do this stuff. We were talking about
early on. We were talking about hiring on VAs and
bringing an editor into our business, and maybe that's like a U.S. person that's part of our team in our office. And we're thinking, well, how does that work when we need to deliver the next morning and all this stuff? So the logistics of that aside,
yeah, that poor guy was going to be starting at 7 p.m. and going home at 3 a.m.
right? But then we thought, well, maybe we can hire someone in there, like the creative director, and then we'll build a team of editors, and they work overseas. But the thing is, you have to hire them and
These
pay
were
for
the
them.
proto Pixlmob ideas.
Yes, early days. But then it's become more obvious, I think, generally. And Pixlmob, I think, has been part of that solution is, well, there's a way I can do this. Just whenever I need it, I can go and click a button and I can get it back in 12 hours. And I don't have to order again all this week or next month if I don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't have to establish a relationship and create a billing situation. It's just when I need it, I can do that. The thing is, we're kind of coming back to a new world of this, I think, with AI. For AI workflows, this is becoming a new common practice which is I am going to use AI to do the workflow. And then what I am investing in on my team is someone to do retouching and to do the cleanup, the delivery, and these things too. And the it's a it seems like a lighter load, and as you scale, it becomes more of an issue. But the thing applies here, where if you can outsource at a small scale, and you don't have to make these like commitments within your business,
Yep.
where we've got to downsize in October or November, and then we're bringing more people on and training them quickly, rapidly as we move in from May into June.
And that literally happens.
Yeah, and there's businesses that are built around that, and at a certain scale, that may make sense. And you've probably got way more sophisticated budgeting, and they're doing the smart and disciplined things with their budget. But when you're getting started,
Happens. Like UPS does that every year.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
absolutely. But they're still contractors, So I do think that building a system around your business that can flex is a very helpful tool.
I think and I think we've seen that. Like we had VAs on staff and things like that. There's nothing wrong with scaling that way, but it does have the inflexibility
Yeah.
of if you're a small to medium sized photography company, that can actually be a pretty big swing. If you have 2 VAs on staff and you're paying $3,000 to $5,000 a month, even for like outsourced overseas help. In the wintertime, if your revenue's gone down 20, 30%, that could easily be
That whole
chunk.
Yeah.
And that can be pretty painful, where when you have a good per use system, you don't have that because your Pixlmob bill goes up or down based on how much you actually use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same with a lot of the new AI tools and things like that, which are pretty fun too.
Yeah. So you already kind of started to dip into this, what you do with the time. If you've now time is your currency and you've got 20% or more of your time.
Yep.
What do you do?
Well, I think first you got to actually be motivated to do it, because I think honestly, typically, like it's funny how like the intention behind stuff really makes all the difference. Because if you outsource your editing because you don't know how to edit, or you're lazy, or you only like a piece of it, or whatever your rationale is, if you're outsourcing your editing for anything other than being able to empower the health and growth of your business, you're probably doing it wrong. Like there has to be an intention behind saving that time, or you're just going to waste the time. So I would dial it back just a touch and say, like, before you're thinking about these sort of refinements, ask yourself why you want the refinement and why do you want to save the time? Because the way we work as humans, if there's not a why driving us, the how, you may design the perfect system, but you're not going to implement it very well. And your business may not even grow, because if you're not motivated to use that time in the health and growth of your business, nothing's going to happen. But there's a lot of fun ways you can engage your brain in that. So like one of the things I used to do with coaching clients was to engage them in like simple math as to how, if they would invest in simplifying a process, how much time they would save over the course of a year. Like one of the mentors that I had in coaching was a real estate legend by the name of Tony DeCello, who was the top realtor in Colorado for like all of the 1990s or something crazy like that. And then became like a master real estate coach. And one of the things he would focus on as coaches is we would be prone to just like, well, we'll just teach them how to take one more listing that month. And that's fine. That's a lot of real estate. But he would poke us with like, well, what can you do to engage them with the efficiency of their business? Because anytime you add to the efficiency of a business, that money goes directly to the bottom line. So if you have the exact same number of transactions, the exact same number of listings, the exact same number of employees, and you just increase the efficiency of how you get them, take them, etc., that cost savings goes immediately to the profitability of the business. Almost always, and wherever you're finding that savings. So when you're finding a time savings, I would encourage somebody to think about what that time saving looked like over the course of a year. So make it really tangible and then ask yourself what you could do with that time. So to make this tangible, thousand something shoots for North 7th. If we save 5 minutes in the workflow of 1,000 listings, that translates into about 80 hours of time over the course of a year. 80 hours of time might not sound like a ton. That's 2 work weeks. So if you had 2 focused work weeks to devote to growing your business or making it more efficient, what could you do with that if you just immediately had 2 weeks to be able to focus? That's the potential impact of saving 5 minutes on every single listing. So what about 10? What about 15? What about 20? Can you design a process that saves 30 minutes? Because that's going to multiply that by what? By 6. So that's 12 weeks of work time if you can save 30 minutes on one process. So it doesn't necessarily feel like a ton, but if you're trying, like most of us, to figure out how do you have an extra 30 minutes with your kids, or how do you have 30 more minutes to call that realtor that you really want in your Rolodex, like you can make that time. You can make 12 weeks of time in a business North 7th size by figuring out a way to save 30 minutes on the workflow. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So if you put it in those terms and you ask yourself, what could I do with 12 weeks of time? You could probably do something pretty amazing. And if you can engage your heart into, I want to do that next year, you might actually do it.
Let's maybe take it a little bit more practical to wrap this up.
How about some gifts? That was something fun we used to do in the wintertime. Like another efficient thing you can do is develop relationships. So you had some awesome ideas when we were starting out of ways to engage the relationships with our clients. And we used some of our winter time to actually send gifts to some of our top clients.
Yeah, I think that actually did come back with some good return on that investment.
I would say so. One of those clients that got some of those gifts was a $35,000 annual client.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it was worth a gift basket.
a little bit.
Yeah. I think people talk about gifts. I think you can go way overboard with this. A lot of people, I see these conversations come up every year around Christmas time, what they should do. I think that you can make an investment there. I think you have to be pretty selective. One of the things we did, we really only gave gifts to some pretty high profile clients.
We probably did something like the top 10% of our clientele.
I think it was top 10.
Maybe
literally
top 10?
Yeah.
Well, that first year, you like handmade stuff, so for sure.
What we ended up doing, which I think was some of the most effective, is we had made some photo books and just had them printed online, and they were bespoke to each of those companies. It was just all the photos, not all, but like, their top listings and
the coolest photos from their listings in like a little annual.
It's kind of like a cool little artifact, and it's just like, memorializes our partnership this year.
And nowadays it's really easy to do stuff like that on Shutterstock or whatever.
Yeah.
To produce those pretty economically.
Yeah. I think it's Shutterfly.
That's correct. I mean, Shutterstock's cool too, but it doesn't do that. Shutterfly is going to get you better.
I think that there's some other things too that, as far as things you're doing in the wintertime, I do think you gave some good advice here. You've got room for efficiencies that you don't have time.
That's the biggest thing you can do.
Go back through all, particularly software stuff. That stuff is a massive multiplier. If you've invested in one of these operating systems, HD Photo Hub, Spiro, Aereo, Tono, one of those.
If you're not a master of that thing,
you're missing out in a big way. It's also a good time for you to be thinking about your pricing structure. You've got a year of learning maybe since the last time you've touched it.
That's actually something we typically do in the winter too.
Yeah.
Is it's slower, and we've typically done price increases in January.
Yeah.
I forgot who we were talking to early when we were starting the company. We talked to somebody, and there were several people who just always did price increases in January. I don't even remember why, but we kind of adopted that and did the work of like adjusting the menu during that time and optimizing it up, down, whatever we needed to do.
And if there's time to take things off the menu,
we did that too.
Consider putting things on the menu, bundling things.
I made you put stuff on. That was usually a bad idea.
Yeah. But, simplicity is a benefit, I think, with these menus. I think that you can take the time to kind of audit your products. What
Yeah.
did people buy? What did they not buy?
Yeah.
Was this just sitting
Is
here
this-
cluttering up my order form?
It's a great time to reflect, just like we do like personally with New Year's resolutions. Take all your products, and like if you use like we've used Aereo for years in North 7th, and it can like generate lists, and I think most of the platforms can do this of like, okay, what were your top products? Like were almost all of them a pack of 25 photos? How many of them were you able to upsell to video? How many had Matterports? How many of the products you have on your menu did you not sell any of that year, and they probably shouldn't be on there at all, and they're just wasting your time?
Yeah. Yep. I think there's other things too, as far as skills. I think when you can push yourself as a business owner or as a photographer, this is a great time to dive into. Here's one I think that's easy to overlook. And this is kind of a little bit counteractive to us as Pixlmob owners, but go learn to edit. If you're brand new, you've started a business, maybe you've had a business for 2 years.
Matty's been wanting me to learn to edit for like since he knew me.
Well, I'm terrible at it. But here's the thing. I think as a photographer,
But you know how, and that was really important to the growth of our business and what was designed.
if you can learn to shoot for the edit, you understand why you shoot brackets, how they get used. You understand why you use a tripod, what things, how far you can push things in the real world, like how much of a tilt you can get away with when you figure out.
It looks real weird.
Yeah, but like there are times when you've got a really shallow backyard and it's only 8 feet deep and you've got a 2-story condo, and you're trying to get a shot of the house. You need to tilt it to see it all. But is it, the rules of, you always need perfect verticals when you shoot isn't true. You know that you have some
Sometimes it's
latitude in
impossible.
the edit, but you don't know what that latitude is unless you've done it yourself. So go practice. I think that's a really helpful thing that gives you time back. It does. You may not understand it yet, but like it makes you faster at shooting because you're not going to shoot a bunch of different versions of that. And spending time guessing and playing around with it. You can get a house shot in 20 to 30 minutes, most houses. And that's in part by learning some of these skills. So yeah, that'd be one of those things where I think it's maybe not an obvious one, but it can definitely be a big multiplier.
I have two last thoughts of like what you can do in the winter. The first one is if you think back to the budget, if you're not really good at your budget, and a lot of business owners aren't, so don't feel too bad if you're not, but maybe you get better at it because it's the core of business is your profit and loss statement. But if that's not something you've mastered yet, look at your business in the winter. If you can afford to hire help in the winter, you're going to probably afford it all year round. So it's a really easy barometer that you're not going to eat all your profit. If you're kind of break even in the winter with the salary, you can probably do it year round and it can maximize your time. And if you get on that journey of learning to hire and learning to leverage and learning to systematize a real business instead of just you as a solopreneur, then that can create so much space and freedom in your life to actually rest. And even if so whether you do or don't have leverage or employees or anything like that for your business to keep running, it's really important. And the winter is a great time to just take some space and rest. Because if you don't do that, it eventually catches up with you and you crash or you develop gout like me or whatever is going to happen. But you have to learn to have those healthy cycles of rest. And in a seasonal business, the slow season is a really obvious time that you can take a little more time and actually do self-care and do those things with your family that you've kind of been putting off.
You'll pay for it eventually. That's the thing.
It will catch up with you and put you on your butt if you don't. But hopefully you don't have to learn everything the hard way. Hopefully it's something that you can just make some space for this winter, and your family and you will probably appreciate it next year.
And another good thing that you can do in the wintertime is you can go back through and listen to all the great conversations that we've had at this table.
You could probably binge the entire Prop Media podcast so far across the winter.
Yeah, put it on like 1.5 times, and you can speed this in.
You need to hear these deep, sonorous tones. Like
Slow
at
it
least
down whenever
0.9.
Moses is talking.
Yeah.
Really draw it out. That's like my nightmare, I think.
It's Gen Z. They're like into ASMR and stuff.
There you go. I mean, we did invest in these great microphones, so you can benefit from that. But we genuinely have
Gen Z. Hello.
have about a dozen conversations that we've recorded since we started this podcast. And we've talked about all kinds of topics about building and scaling your business. And we've had some really great interviews already this year, and some more to come. So if you haven't subscribed, I would definitely recommend. You can find us on YouTube, which you may be watching us on YouTube right now. But you can also download anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple or Spotify, and many more.
So hit the bell and subscribe. That's what everybody says, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
We're official.
Thanks for tuning in.